right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Litchfield Budget Committee budget hearing. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we will start tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thanks, everyone, for coming out tonight. I'm going to start the evening by introducing our committee members, and then after we will do that, we'll go through kind of the process that we're going to use on both the town and the school side. Most of our committee members are here tonight, so when I call your name, if you could just stand. And by the way, John David Son, and I'm chair of the Budget Committee. Scott Taylor, who's our vice chair. Doug LaPlante. William Hayes. Harry Douglas. Derek Barca. Unable to be with us tonight is Brian Burke. And then our school board representative is Andrew Cutter. And our select board representative is Robert Leary. Thank you all for being here. So the process that we'll use tonight is we will go through the town budget process. We'll read the warrant articles that the town has proposed and that the budget committee has reviewed and mostly voted on already. We'll then take questions from anyone who wants to come up and ask questions on the town budget or on the town warrant articles. We have various department heads and our town administrator here that can help answer those questions this evening. Then we'll use the same process on the school side. We'll go through our school budget process, the school warrant articles, and then at the very end take any questions that we have on the school side. Just a housekeeping note, once we conclude the budget hearing, the budget committee is going to meet down here in the corner. We have 6 warrant articles that we're going to vote on tonight that we have not yet had an opportunity to do. So we'll do that at the conclusion of this meeting and start a separate budget committee meeting. To get us started tonight, just some highlights of the budget committee. The membership of the committee is comprised of number of members of the town and other representation as determined by town meeting adoption of RSA 32. The town of Litchfield adopted the provisions of the municipal budget law by petition at the 1969 annual town meeting, Article 10, and at the same meeting, the town voted to elect six budget committee members, which was Article 11. Then in 2013, the town voted Article 14 to increase the elected membership from 6 to 7 members. Members serve staggered terms of 3 years. If you didn't notice, we have 3 positions that will be up for election this March. So now we'll go through the town budget process. The town budget process began with the Board of Selectmen and their budget process in August after they received a proposed budget by department heads. The proposed budget was $8,648,939. This budget represented an 8.55% increase and a $364,347 over the tax cap. During the budget process, the budget was increased by $41,709 to accommodate hydrant increases as well as Primex insurance changes. This brought the total proposed budget to $8,690,348. The Select Board then met in September and made reductions to the budget totaling $27,814.45. These reductions came from fire per diem additional hours, solid waste, and police. After the Board of Selectmen made these reductions, this put the budget $336,532.55 over the tax cap. Following their meetings in September, the Board of Selectmen made additional reductions to the budget in October, totaling $141,233.55. The vast majority of this reduction included the removal of 2 police cruisers from the budget. Overall reductions that were made by the Board of Selectmen during the review process totaled $197,052 and left the budget over the tax cap by $167,295. And just a reminder for everyone, we have a 5% tax cap that as a budget committee, we are legally obligated when we vote and go through the process to get the budget at a minimum under that 5% tax cap. The budget review process with the town began on the following dates. On October 3rd and October 10th, we had department heads, town administrator, town finance director came in, walked us through their budget. The various department heads came in and gave presentations on items that impacted their budget, things that caused increases or decreases, and budget committee members had an opportunity to ask questions of those department heads. At that time, the Select Board delivered a budget to the Budget Committee of $8,493,596. Following those review sessions in early October, the Budget Committee then voted on the town budget at our meetings on October 17th and October 24th. Actions that the Budget Committee took included reductions in police administration of $68,903, fire additional per diem hours, $47,840, fire impact fees towards debt of $40,000, general government gasoline, $6,635, and Parks and Rec, $5,312. Budget Committee also reduced various additional line items, but for a total of $13,464. Total Budget Committee reductions during that process were $206,167. This left the total revised town budget at $8,287,429, which is 4.22% over last year's budget. And just to recap everything that we've talked about, so the town budget that we'll see on the warrant article here in just a minute is $8,287,429. It's 4.22% over the 2024 approved budget. And it currently sets $44,562 under the tax cap. The table that you see here in the bottom left is an outline of the warrant articles and the potential tax impact. And I'll explain that as we go through the warrant articles here in just a second. With that, we'll transition to the town warrant articles. I'm going to read each of these warrant articles in totality so that we have an opportunity to hear everything that's in them. So the first town warrant article is Article 5, the operating budget. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth in the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by the vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $8,287,429. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $8,160,158, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town of Litchfield or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 4013-10 and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. The estimated 2024 tax rate impact is 17 cents. This was recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0-0 and also recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 7-1-0. It should say estimated 2025 tax rate impact. My apologies. Article 6, Human Services and Health Agencies. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $20,450 to support human services and health agencies, providing services to the town of Litchfield? This sum to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised from new taxation. Majority vote required. The estimated 2025 tax rate impact is $0.00. This was recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0-0, also recommended by the Budget Committee 8-0-0. Article 7, Ambulance Revolving Fund. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000 to be placed in the Ambulance Revolving Fund as previously established? This sum to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised from new taxation. Majority vote required. Estimated 2025 tax rate impact $0.00. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0-0. Also recommended by the Budget Committee 8-0-0. Article 8, Property Reevaluation Expendable Trust Fund. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $25,000 to be placed in the Property Reevaluation Expendable Trust Fund as previously established? This sum to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised from new taxation. Majority vote required. Estimated 2025 tax rate impact $0.00. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 4-1-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 8-0-0. Article 9, New Police Department Building. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $6,500,000? I'll restart that. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $6,500,000 for the purpose of financing the cost of planning, feasibility analysis, architecture, and engineering fees, constructing site work, landscaping, furnishing, and equipping, and related cost of a new police department building, and to authorize the issuance of $6,500,000 of bonds or notes under and in accordance compliance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA Chapter 33, and to authorize the selectmen to issue and negotiate, sell and deliver such bonds or notes, and to determine the rate of interest thereon and the maturity and other terms thereof, to authorize the selectmen to apply for, accept, and expend federal, state, or other aid, if any, which may be available for said project, and to comply with all laws applicable to said project, to authorize the selectmen to use any available impact fees to reduce the amount to be bonded, and to authorize the selectmen to take any other action or to pass any other vote relative thereto. 3/5 ballot vote required. The estimated 2025 tax rate impact, $0.00. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500. Budget Committee has yet to vote on this. And just a side note on this, the Board of Selectmen had to reschedule the bond hearing that was supposed to be earlier this week. It's going to be next Tuesday here in this building at 7 p.m. Thank you. Because of that, the Budget Committee has yet to vote on this, and we likely will not vote whether to recommend or not recommend this article until town deliberative. Article 10, General Assistance Expendable Trust Fund. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $20,000 to be placed in the General Assistance Expendable Trust Fund as previously established? This sum to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised from new taxation. Majority vote required. Estimated 2025 tax rate impact, $0.00. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500. Recommended by the Budget Committee 900. Article 11, Public Works Expendable Trust Fund. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $30,000 to be placed in the Public Works Expendable Trust Fund as previously established? This sum to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised from new taxation. Majority vote required. Estimated 2025 tax rate impact, $0.00. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500. Recommended by the Budget Committee 900. Article 12, Replacement of one police cruiser. To utilize unassigned fund balance in the sum of $68,903 to purchase and equip one new pursuit-rated police model cruiser. Selection and purchase of said vehicle to be the responsibility of the Board of Selectmen in their discretion if determined to be necessary and in the best interest of the town. Purchase of said vehicle to be by competitive bidding. Majority vote required. Estimated 2025 tax rate impact, $0.00. This was recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500. Also recommended by the Budget Committee 900. Article 13 is an additional replacement of one police cruiser. To utilize unassigned fund balance in the sum of $68,903 to purchase and equip one new pursuit-rated police model cruiser. Selection and purchase of said vehicle to be the responsibility of the Board of Selectmen in their discretion if determined to be necessary and in the best interest of the town. Purchase of said vehicle to be by competitive bidding. Majority vote required. Estimated 2025 tax rate impact, $0.00. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500. Recommended by the Budget Committee 810. There were a couple articles that I skipped over. The Budget Committee isn't obligated to vote on any articles that do not have a tax impact. So Article 14 and Article 15 we did not vote on, and so we're not presenting here at the budget hearing tonight. Article 16, Supplement Fire Coverage. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $41,540 to supplement the fire department's budget to allow for increased coverage as necessary to protect the safety and welfare of the residents of Litchfield. Majority vote required. Estimated 2025 tax rate impact is 3 cents. This was recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500. Currently not recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 450. This is one of the articles that we will be re-voting later this evening. When we voted on this warrant article, this amount was slightly higher and would have, if the Budget Committee would have recommended this, would have put us over that tax cap. The Board of Selectmen took action earlier this week and reduced this number. So the Budget Committee will have an opportunity later this evening to re-vote whether to recommend or not recommend this warrant article. Article 17, Additional Assistant Librarian Hours. Shall the town vote to increase the annual hours of the Children's Assistant Librarian position from 706 hours per year to 914 hours per year, effective April 1, 2025, for an estimated annual wage, benefit, and other related cost of $3,647. And further vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,775 for wage, benefit, and other related cost for the period of April 2025 to December 31st, 2025. Majority vote required. Estimated 2025 tax rate impact is 22 thousandths of a cent. Wages and benefits, there's a table below that shows the breakdown of 2025 and 2026, both wages and benefits there. This was recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500. Also recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 540. Article 18, Recreation Expendable Trust Fund. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $40,000 to be placed in the Recreational Expendable Trust Fund as previously established? This sum to come from the unassigned fund balance, no amount to be raised from new taxation, majority vote required. Estimated 2025 tax rate impact $0.00. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500. Recommended by the Budget Committee 810. Last but not least, Article 19, to establish PWW Eminent Domain Expendable Trust Fund. To see if the town will vote to establish a PWW Eminent Domain Expendable Trust Fund per RSA 3119A for the purpose of funding the legal, engineering, and other costs of exploring the possibility of acquiring the portion of Pennachuck Waterworks System located within Litchfield by eminent domain, and to raise and appropriate $100,000 to put in the fund, with this amount to come from the unassigned fund balance. Further, to name the Select Board as agents to expend from said fund. Recommendations required, majority vote required, 2025 tax rate impact $0.00. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 500. Also recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 900. That takes us through our town budget and town warrant articles. This time we'll take any questions that anyone has on those town warrant articles. There's a mic up here at the front. You can come down, state your name, state your address, ask the questions. I'll do my best to answer them, and then we have members of department heads and the town administrator here to help. So please feel free. Good evening, sir. Thank you, John.
Well, my question, first of all, is how much of all those items taken out of the unassigned tax fund total up to? Not sure if you can do that off the top of your head. But.
Yeah, so if you look, this table that I had up there briefly, so if you, the ones that say no tax impact,
okay.
Totaled down here at the bottom, $393,256.
All right. The difficulty that I have, and I have not really understood this till recently, is when I go in the voting booth and I see zero tax impact, I never understood what that really meant. So essentially what it means is that we have unspent money at the end of a budget. And traditionally, the selectmen have not, if there's unassigned, have not returned that back till recently anyway, to the town as a tax credit. In discussions I've listened to, part of the reason is the amount of unassigned that they're comfortable having to cover cash flow issues has been less than what is the desired amount.
Yeah, they do have a policy by which they're required, and certainly Ms. Kleiner or anyone else, please feel free to jump in. They're required to keep an unassigned fund balance between 8 and 12%. Correct. That's a policy that they have. You're correct. It does have to do with cash flow, payments to the school. All of that kind of flows through that. Currently, that amount sits at 11.3%.
Correct. And I heard at a selectmen's meeting that at least the chairman of the board would say that they are comfortable at the current level of unassigned fund balance. So therefore, if that's the case, essentially what this is a tax of $390,000, because if we had, if these are not approved, then this amount of money is available to be returned as a tax credit.
I can certainly let Ms. Kleiner or someone speak to, I don't believe the town has had a practice of returning for a tax credit.
I will say, and somebody else can speak to it, but I did hear at the Board of Selectmen, at least the chairman of the board said, I'm going to put words in Bob's mouth, and if he can certainly affirm or deny, but he felt that the amount was at a position that he would now recommend returning unassigned funds.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak for Mr. Leary either. I can certainly let him do that as well. But I do know they have that threshold by which their policy requires them to keep for cash flow purposes.
Correct.
They're within that threshold currently, and that's usually a question that the Budget Committee will ask during this process, is when we see those several items coming from unassigned. I remember one of our members asked it during the process, are we still comfortable, if all of these pass, with the amount that would be left in unassigned? And the answer was yes.
Yeah, and that's comfortable. The point being is there needs to be some way to explain to people that this is not free money. It's not coming from some grant or something else.
It's money that's already been taxed, yes.
It's already been money taxed, that if we don't spend it, is available to return as a tax credit. So whether it's in the voter handout or some other opportunity, I think that process needs to be explained so people understand when it says zero impact, it's really not zero impact. It still is 20,000, 100,000, whatever it is. You're paying for it.
They technically have already paid for it, right? Yeah.
Well, they're paying for it in the sense that they're not getting a credit on this year's increase, just as the school did last year. So my hope and recommendation is somehow in the process come up with a way to explain that fully, and I would ask, whether it be the Budget Committee, whatever, to review with the town as to where they would feel comfortable, at what level, to return any monies that were over a certain level.
Thank you. I know you had another point, Mr. Oblinus, but I didn't know if Mr. Leary wanted to speak to that.
Hi, Bob Leary, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen. When I first came on the board 6 years ago and there was any kind of surplus money, I always, let me turn and face the people. I always advocated for returning it to the taxpayers. And I was told that the reason why it wasn't done that way is because it would create what, the school had last year with the artificial decrease in the tax impact. So that if you say you reduced it by $300,000, the next year that money's going to be made up. So that's going to really jump the gun on the taxes. Okay, I'm always in favor of giving it back to the people, even if you only write them a check for $1. Give it back to the people because they're the ones that put it in. But I guess I've been schooled.
Thank you, Mr. Leary. Mr. Oblinus, I think you had a second comment.
What I want to talk about is something that I've spoke quite a bit at different places, and it's regarding the police station. And I will begin, as I've said every time I talk about this, I am not opposed. In fact, I support the need to do something for police operations in the town. Do not take my comments as I am not supportive of doing anything or continuing where we have. So with that as a caveat or intro, I have been asking for the backup for the cost estimate for the police station for a number of months. And long story short, if there's a presentation that's on the website now, I appreciate the chief putting up earlier this week, has a number of things related to the project on the police department website. And one of those is the estimate of the current estimate that was used to develop the $6 million originally, or 5.9, I think it was. Mm-hmm. Yes, 5.9. And this week it was bumped up for contingency to the 6.5. However, I have never felt comfortable that the details within that estimate have been fully vetted. I don't know where they came from. No one can tell me. Obviously, Ekman, a construction manager, have been used, as I understand, to create an estimate for the construction side. But that's a long way from the complete estimate to include engineering, soft cost, a number of other things. And what disturbed me the most is in looking at things and preparing for today's discussion, I found that the chief had posted an estimate, which is there, on the website entitled Opinion of Probable Project Cost. And this is actually developed by the engineer that was used to, I believe, create the plans that we see on the website. And that estimate was done in 2020. The irony of it is this number is $8 million. This was done in 2020. And to confirm it's the same building, there's a notation of square footage, 10,440, which is the proposal that we're represented up here. So the building is exactly the same size, and it's option 8 that's been talked about. So this estimate matches what's proposed. My question becomes immediately, how do we go from 8 million to a proposed number of 5 million, 5.9, and now 5.6? I have said before, the process that this has been used to create this has been backwards. We have used engineers without hiring them, and they've done some work. We brought in construction managers to help us. Ekman built the fire station. I will admit it's a logical thing to do, but it does not follow a proper engineering process. And I've asked, where is the backup for this original estimate of 5.9? And no one seems to know, with the exception that Ekman came up with an estimate for the building construction itself. But that's only $3,102,000. $3 million of that nearly is other costs. And those are all reflected in this number from Ekman, more detail. And I will even say this lacks the detail I would expect. So quite truthfully, I think this has not been vetted sufficiently to move forward. I've said it before, and I'll stand by my recommendation that what should be going to the public, and I would support this 100%, is we need to put forth a warrant article to hire an engineer to fully vet options again and look at things and come up with a current, fully understood, fully identified cost estimate, which will be multiple pages, not just a couple of lines in a page. And then, once we have an engineer, we can go hire a construction manager. They'll come in and give us a guaranteed maximum price. We will be in a position, hopefully next year, to then present something that I feel we can have some confidence in.
Thank you, Mr. Obelinas.
Thank
you. Any other members of the public? Comments around police station or any other warrant articles this evening? Okay. Going once, twice. All right, we will transition to the school budget. Follow the same process. I'll walk us through the process that was used by the school board and the budget committee. We'll go through the current warrant articles, and then we'll entertain questions on the school budget and school warrant article side. Highlights of the school budget process. The budget committee joined the school board budget review sessions. These were joint sessions that were held over at the fire station on November 7th and November 13th. These sessions were facilitated by the school board. Budget committee members had an opportunity to attend, ask questions of principals and various department heads within the school administration. The operating budget was then delivered to the budget committee on October 29th. The total delivered budget was $27,690,198. This represented a 6.62% increase from last year. The school board voted on the budget at their November 20th meeting and reduced the overall operating budget by $105,880.90. The next day, the budget committee began review of details. This included follow-up presentations from department heads and school principals, where budget committee members had opportunities to ask additional clarifying questions. Voting on the school budget then began on December 5th and continued on December 12th. On December 5th, the budget committee reduced various budget line items by a total of $124,550. On December 12th, the Budget Committee further reduced various line items by a total of $100,728. And then just this week, on January 15th, 2025, the school board further reduced various budget line items by a total of $248,273. A summary of the Budget Committee reductions that I mentioned on the previous slide. Out of the $225,278 that were reduced by the Budget Committee, $167,000 of those came from salaries and benefits. $41,945 were from buildings and grounds. $11,333 were from Litchfield Middle School, and $5,000 from technology. This left us with a revised total school budget for on the operating side of $27,110,766. In addition to the operating budget, the school has two additional budgets that feed into the overall number that's on the warrant article. The first of those is food service, and that amount is $770,289. The second one is grants, which is $575,000. That gives us a total budget that's represented on the warrant article of $28,456,055. And now we'll walk through the school warrant articles. Article 1, shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by the vote at the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $28,456,055. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $28,154,937, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Litchfield School District or by law, or the school board may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 4013-10 and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Majority vote required. The operating budget has an estimated tax impact of $1.90. The default budget has an estimated tax impact of $1.65. This has been recommended by the school board by a vote of 5-0-0, and the Budget Committee will be voting on this after tonight's budget hearing. Article 2, shall the Litchfield School District vote to approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Litchfield School District and the Litchfield Support Staff Association, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing level over those paid in the prior fiscal year. Year 2025-2026, the estimated increase is $206,530. Year 2026 through 2027, the estimated increase is $201,100. And in year 2027-2028, the estimated increase is $225,093. And further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $206,530 for fiscal year 2026, such sum representing the additional costs attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at current staffing levels. Majority vote required. Estimated tax impact is 17 cents. Recommended by the school board by a vote of 5-0-0. Not recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 4-4-1. There is an Article 3 which has to do with allowing the school board to hold a special meeting if Article 2 fails. Doesn't have a tax impact, so Budget Committee does not vote on that. Article 4, shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $48,605 for the purpose of funding the salary and benefit cost for a part-time district-wide athletic trainer position to provide athletic training services to student athletes, as well as to provide support to the athletic director as needed. This position will be included in next year's default budget. Majority vote required. Estimated tax impact is 4 cents. Recommended by the school board by a vote of 5-0-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 9-0-0. Article 5, shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $250,000 to be added to the Building Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund established in 2005 for the purpose of funding school capital improvements, building maintenance and repairs in the Litchfield School District. Majority vote required. Estimated tax impact is 20 cents. Recommended by the school board 5-0-0, and the Budget Committee will be voting on this after the hearing this evening. Article 6, shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,253 to be added to the Employee Benefits Reserve Fund established in 2022 for the purpose of funding the payment of negotiated employee benefits, including but not limited to health insurance reimbursements, changes in coverage or policies chosen by employees, severance benefits, and such other benefits as are from time to time negotiated and become contractual obligations of the district, with the sum to come from the June 30 fund balance available for transfer on July 1 of this year, with no additional amount to be raised from taxation. This amount is consistent with the amount raised for severance payments that were not paid out in fiscal year 2025 and therefore will be paid out in subsequent years. Majority vote required. Estimated tax impact $0.00. Recommended by the school board 5-0-0. Also recommended by the budget committee by a vote of 9-0-0. Article 7, shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate up to a sum of $200,000 to be added to the Special Education Capital Reserve Fund established in 2004 for the purpose of educating disabled students, with this sum to come from the June 30 fund balance available for transfer on July 1 of this year, with no additional amount to be raised from taxation. Majority vote required. Estimated tax impact $0.00. Recommended by the school board 5-0-0. Again, budget committee to vote on this after the hearing this evening. Article 8. Shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate up to a sum of $125,000 to be added to the Capital Improvements Expendable Trust Fund established in 2020 for the purpose of funding the study, planning, and cost of new construction or renovation of existing facilities in the Litchfield School District, with this sum to come from the June 30 fund balance available for transfer on July 1 of this year, with no additional amount to be raised from taxation. This amount is consistent with the capital plan adopted by the town of Litchfield in September 2020. Majority vote required. Estimated tax impact $0.00. Recommended by the school board 5-0-0. Again, budget committee will vote on this after the hearing this evening. And the last warrant article, Article 9. Shall the Litchfield School District vote to establish a capital reserve purchase fund under the provisions of RSA 35-1 to be known as the Solar Array Fund for the purpose of accumulating funds to acquire the solar equipment at the Litchfield Middle School at the end of the 6-year agreement, and to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 to be placed in this fund, with this sum to come from the June 30 fund balance and available for transfer on July 1 of this year, with no additional amount to be raised from taxation, and further to designate the school board as agents to expend this fund. Majority vote required. Estimated tax impact $0.00. Recommended by the school board 5-0-0. Voting by the budget committee after tonight's hearing. That concludes our school warrant articles and school budget. We'll open it up for any questions on the school side. Please feel free to state your name and your address, please. There you go.
I don't know. Okay.
That'll work.
Darlene Jimziak, 5 Arcadian Lane. I just have a comment. Article 2, the CBA for the LSSA. The comment is that I see that the Budget Committee voted not to recommend. I wanted to let you know that that is for over 80 employees in the district. We currently have 77 filled. So that amount is for about 80 positions. The other comment I have is that out of those positions, 53% of them live here in town. So when I hear comments of I understand I'm a taxpayer, I live here. When I hear comments, my neighbors can't afford it, or, welfare comments, things like that. Well, you just said no to giving them a raise for 53%. So the first year of the contract, that is not a lot of money for 80 people in the district who work hard and are dedicated to their job. And personally, I think they deserve a lot more. They're with our kids day in. We feed them. We have custodians that have to clean vomit, the bathrooms, toilets, and that is really not a lot of money, especially when there's another warrant article that's for $48,000 for one person. That's for nearly 80. So I would hope that you would revote and recommend. All right, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any additional comments on the school warrant articles this evening?
I know people are probably getting sick of hearing me make observations. Part of it is, I think, it's seriously now that I've started to look at this, been retired for a number of years and had time to spend on some of the stuff. And I just simply say I should have done it a long time ago. Anyway, couple of things that I want to talk about. Same question to you is on the unassigned, what is the total of unassigned funds on the school side?
I don't have that totaled in front of me, but if you give me a minute, maybe move to another question, I can quickly
Yes,
get that for
sure.
you.
A couple of other things then that I spoke to in recent meetings. One of the things that has, I think, not been fully vetted is the proposal to put together and start funding money associated with the schools or the solar panel array. It's probably very confusing for a lot of people as to what that is. I thought, many people will think we paid for that with the bond warrant issue that was passed, I can't remember, year 22, I think it might have been, somewhere there, for $5 million. Because in that $5 million, there was $1 million dedicated to solar. Ironically, that didn't get spent on solar. The $5 million and then some got spent on the other things other than solar. We entered into a contract with a third party to construct the solar panel system. And as part of that offering, we are paying about half of what we normally would in electric bills now. However, at year 6, there is a option to buy out or buy the panels that I thought were planning to install and own ourselves. And that currently is estimated at $600 and some odd thousand. And if you read the contract for that, that will not be accurately determined until we come to the year of the exercise of the option, which is 6 years out from when the system is fully activated and has not been activated yet. So that's essentially why the $100,000 was put in that amount of money. My question becomes, like a lot of things, and like the police station, is I'm not sure that it's a wise thing to own it. And to that point, one of the things that I would like to see is a full analysis of all the considerations to continue with the payments, which escalate after year 6 through year 20, but we don't maintain the system. The installer does. There's a number of high-priced items that anticipated to fail and need to be replaced in the 20 years, including the battery storage, and the solar panels begin to fail after 15 years. There's also the consideration of removal of the solar panels when we have to do the installation of a new roof. That needs to be considered. How has that impacted whether we own it or don't? The simple fact is, I really feel that we're making a decision based upon one factor and not considering the full context of whether this is a good idea to do or not. In hindsight, I wasn't involved in it, but I question whether what we did is the right thing to do in the first place. If we were going to install these, we should have installed them, as I believe the warrant article said, paid for them, and be generating all the power for nothing at this point, if that's the way they actually function. And that's one point. We don't know if they will function and pay for itself. So there's a whole bunch of things in there that I think we're getting the cart before the horse. I understand the reason to try to pick away at it. I actually think the smart thing to do is when we get to the point where we actually have the option year, look at it in total, and if it's deemed to be the right thing to do, we'll bond it as a single project, yay or nay. In a similar fashion, there's a warrant article for now $250,000 to, yeah, right there, to start to put away $250,000 in the Building Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund. I understand why, being on the Facilities Improvement Committee, where we're looking at what to do with our buildings, school buildings in town, and specifically GMS. We're looking at the total needs for the district, how to fix GMS, how to respond to GMS, and also, we've just had a report done by the school department that says that we need $28 million over the next 20 years to maintain the buildings we have now. So I think it's quite obvious that that is not doing a little bit at a time. That needs to be looked at in total. It will require a bond of some amount to get us started on repairs that are due on principally GMS. And also, one of the big items is the roof on Campbell, which is due to be replaced in 3 to 5 years. Again, my point being is to put this up here with all the other things you're asking for, it's like, what do you intend to do with it? And one of the things I found out, when this number was $500,000, the rationale was $500,000 a year will support the $2 million for the roof in 5 years. Well, that's great, but what do you do with the other $15 million that you need? Where is that coming from? So I really don't think this is an appropriate way to start out. I think as a taxpayer, I really want to see a fully vetted plan of what we're going to do with our schools, how we're going to look at them, and come up with a solution that is not hit or miss, or something that's really undefined. Why do we pick 250? Well, there's no answer for that. There's also, I point out, there's total in our capital reserve funds of nearly $600,000 currently. That would take care of any emergencies, boilers going down, something major like that. So this is not needed right at the moment to take care of capital projects over the next year. Again, a year from now, I fully expect there will be a substantive, fully vetted project before the town, and it will look at the whole thing. That's where this type of funding needs to be looked at. And I recommend it to be withdrawn and rolled into next year.
Thank you, Mr. Oblinas. To answer your first question, sir, and I know Mr. Cutter will hold me honest if I'm incorrect on this number, the unassigned fund balance total, if all of the warrant articles on the school side were to pass, is $427,253. Yes, sir. $427,253.
I'm astounded by that number. You realize what that means in a tax rate? That's 40 cents in a tax rate. That is coming out of, I know we're taxed now, but you really need to figure out how to say to people, these unassigned votes, if they're all passed, will essentially take out of your pocket, because it's not coming back to you, $427,000.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments, questions on the school side this evening? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, so Andrew Cutter, School Board Chair. So in regard to solar, just so everyone understands.
In regards to what, sorry?
The solar.
Oh.
So after year 6, we're currently in a fixed payment structure on solar. We pay $97,620 thereabouts for the solar array that's on top of LMS right now. After year 6, that payment spikes to $114,000 and change. Year 7, it goes to $117,000 and gradually increases every year by thousands of dollars from that point forward. By year 25, the payment goes to $194,146. The idea for setting aside $100,000 now is to build up a $600,000 reserve. So after year 6, we have sufficient funds to be able to pay off the solar array without increasing any additional payments and taxes to the taxpayer. The idea behind a bond, while interesting, I think is not a great idea, because essentially the bond is going to be over a period of time, and then you were paying interest on that payment over a period of time. Why don't we set aside the money now, have the money set aside? Certainly we can do some additional analysis, I'm not debating that. We can do additional analysis and look at the maintenance and et cetera. And if it is deemed a good idea, we can return this money to the taxpayers at that point in time, right? But at least we have the money set aside to pay this thing off without the funds, without the necessary, tax impact to the taxpayers after year 7. I mean, this is to pay 117, 120, 130, 150, 180, 190,000 after year 6, year 7 is a bit ridiculous. In regard to the 250,000, we do have a plan for that. And Mr. Oblinus, I know you came and spoke to the board last night, and I thank you for coming. The 250,000 isn't just a random number. We actually had it at 500,000. We reduced it because the board felt the tax impact was far too great once we looked at the total picture. And we wanted to reduce the tax impact to the taxpayers, which is why it was reduced in half to 250,000. We all understand that our infrastructure, our buildings, are in need of maintenance. GMS, obviously, CHS is in need of maintenance. We want to start to build up our tax base so we can start to put in some of the maintenance behind these buildings, which is what this article does. We already have 360,000 in this fund today. The idea behind an additional 250 gets us to that 500,000 starting point in year 1, right? It gets us to that 500,000 starting point, right? Which is, we refer to the CHS roof in recent discussions as $500,000, right? And to build $500,000 every year in this fund, so in 5 years, 6 years, when CHS roof needs to be replaced, right, we'll have the money set aside to be able to pay for CHS without any additional taxes. So this amount of money allows us to have sufficient funds in year 1 to cover that, right? So instead of raising an additional 5, it's 250 plus the 3 we already have to get us to the number we want to be at. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments, questions on school warrant articles this evening? Okay. Seeing none, we'll take us to the end. As a reminder, Budget Committee is going to meet down here in the corner to vote on Town Warrant Article 16, as well as School Warrant Articles 1, 5, 7, 8, and 9. Also reminders for upcoming deliberative sessions. Town deliberative will be held on Saturday, February 1st at 1 p.m. at the CHS Gymnasium. And then school deliberative will be held on Saturday, February 8th at 10 a.m. here in this room that we're in here tonight. So with that, I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.